Everything is recording, so I think it's time to go. So if you could all pop your mics off, please, that would be great. I'm very glad to see some people here who I haven't seen for a while. Where have you been? Has it been high season or something nuts like that? You might have noticed that things are a little bit different behind me because I'm in a different part of the building, and so my setup's a bit different now. I've got you guys over here, got a camera there, got some notes going on. So as always, if you see me bouncing around, it's just because I'm quietly losing my proverbial, not because I'm distracted by anything else that happens to be going on. So you all know, you should know by now that Instagram is so much more than looking good in public. It's about understood and communicating a message. And I'm a bit weird like that because I do nerd out on these things, but I have been becoming increasingly concerned that Instagram for short rentals, guest houses, glamp sites, hosts seems to be increasingly awash with templates, pictures with no value added to them. And particularly thanks to AI, captions across our industry seem to be becoming homogenous and identical. There's a lot of dive into the oasis of tranquility niff-naff. And so the question for today is, how do we make sure that we sound like ourselves? How do we use our authentic selves to create a signal, as we were talking about signal, that cuts through the noise when we're promoting our businesses? And our businesses are all very unique from one another. And the important thing is to cut through that. So I'm very pleased to welcome Genevieve White to our group. She is a copywriter and a coach for the travel accommodation industry and knows exactly how to help us, our voices, and to use it to attract guests who get what we're really about. Now, I first met Genevieve when we shared a stage in London last spring, and we instantly hit it off in Green Park comparing notes. So let me tell you, you are all in for a treat. As I said, Genevieve is an industry copywriter coach. She's an author of Boldly Go, which, in my opinion, is an essential tool in the copywriting toolbox of any small business, tourism or hospitality business. She's based up in Shetland, and she helps travel businesses sound like themselves so they stand out, book more of the right kind of guests, and stop defaulting to what she would call generic travel speak. She's not just about pretty words, and after 20 some years as a teacher and a business gateway advisor, she understands how to write in a way that builds trust and will move a business forward. So she's worked with boutique stays, operators, meaningful travel experiences. So everyone in our group stands to benefit enormously from paying close attention to everything that Genevieve has to teach. Before I hand over, I'm just going to say that great copy isn't about gimmicks, and it is very much about connection. So Genevieve, thank you for taking the time from your family life to connect with us and to share your wisdom, your experience. Essentially now, the floor is yours.
Wow, what an absolutely lovely introduction. Thank you very much, Paul. And it's a hello, good evening. If it's evening where you are, maybe it's morning, maybe you're nice and fresh, but here at 7:30 at night. So I'm maybe a little bit less than fresh, but for the purposes of tonight, I'm going to be very wide awake and lively. So I'm just going to share my screen and let's get down to business, to captions with character, which is what we're going to be talking about this evening. As we go along, I'm imagining that this might take up to an hour to go through, but it really depends on you because I've got questions. It's also going to be quite an interactive session, so I'll be asking you guys to do a few activities here and there. So yeah, could take a bit less than an hour, could take a little bit more than an hour, but that's roughly what we're looking for. So yeah, as Paul said in his intro, I'm here today to talk about how personality is your biggest booking advantage. We're told a lot by marketing gurus that it's all about showing up and being consistent. But if you're consistently showing up and sounding like a robot, it's not really going to get you very far at all. The important thing is to show up consistently, sounding like yourself. I was going to do a little introductory spiel here, but I really don't need to because Paul did it all. Suffice to say that I have been in one way, shape or form helping people to find their own voice and feel confident about their own writing voice for more years than I would care to remember. So yeah, that's enough about me. So a little bit about this session. I've already told you it's going to be an interactive session, roughly about an hour long, give or take a few minutes. This is what we're going to be doing. I'm going to be giving you some practical tools to discover your voice. It's not going to be, all theoretical. Hopefully you're going to leave the end of this session with some takeaways that you can put into practice and just get going with. You're going to leave with the beginnings of your own personal brand style guide. Finally, you're going to leave with a system to keep it all going, because it's all very well leaving and thinking, yes, I'm going to be writing with lots of personality, and then not keep it up beyond next week. You want to keep it going. So yeah, that's what we're planning on doing today. I'll be pausing every now and then if I remember to ask you if you've got any questions. I'm not a multitasker, so I'm relying on Paul to stop me, interrupt me. If you see any questions coming up, Paul, even if I forget to ask any questions, please just interrupt me. It's not going to put me off my flow. I'd rather you ask questions when they occurred to you, rather than just saving them till the end and then forgetting about them.
Stuff. I'll be on hand looking in the chat as well if people are a little less than comfortable coming on screen. So yeah, that's super cool. Thank you, Jenny.
Absolutely, whatever you prefer. Okay, so let's begin. What I've got on the screen here, I'll move this away to the side, hopefully you can see. I've got 3 Instagram captions here. I just want you to, I'm not going to read them aloud. I'm sure you're all perfectly capable of reading them yourself. I'm going to try and minimize this so you can read them. Haha, there we go. I just want you to read them and just tell me what you think the problems with these 3 captions might be. Yeah, there is a clue, so there's a problem. These are not what I would call great captions. So please just write your thoughts in the chat, and then Paul, if you wouldn't mind telling me what people have said.
There's a couple coming in while everyone's reading it. So I think that might be Wendy on iPad. It just says iPad, but I know Wendy likes to use one of those. Too many cliches.
Yes, absolutely. We've got a stonking amount of cliches here. So these are phrases that are coming up again and again all the time nowadays in Instagram captions, and indeed in travel and tourism writing copy across the board, really. So top tier facilities, home from home, memories that last a lifetime, the perfect blend of comfort and style. Yep, loads of cliches. Anyone else got anything?
Yeah. So Harrow, who's up in Cheshire, who is known for being fairly direct in the way he converses, says too long-winded. Wendy, who's not on an iPad, but she is in Yorkshire, says AI. And Cindy Raffield, who's over in the United States, says much too common. And Chris, who's not too far from you, he's up Loch Lomond way, says too much hyperbole, especially the third one, unparalleled, exquisite, guaranteed, etc. And Ger, who's on the Lynn Peninsula in Northwest Wales, says they are all very beige. And it was Linda Camp, who says there's too many cliches. Linda, we got you. If it says iPad, we know it's you now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm thinking. These are indeed AI generated captions. And for all the reasons you've said, they are a lot less than good. They're not going to do you any favors. They're not going to connect with anyone. There's no sense of any kind of humanity or personality behind these. But we all agree on that. So we can move on, and we're going to move on.
I've just skimmed them quickly. If I can jump in.
Sure.
To me, the thing that not jumps out, but the thing that's missing from these is something that feels unique to any given property. Everything seems to be, so discover the perfect blend of comfort and style. Anyone who operates in our industry will always think that they have that perfect blend of comfort and style.
Yeah.
And if a space isn't thoughtfully designed, it just all seems obvious. I think I would go for what Ger said. They are all very beige.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. They could be absolutely anywhere. There's nothing here. And I think there's a real problem with this in the industry, is that you are increasingly, there is copy that just has nothing, no real sense of place or of personality. So yeah, okay. Thank you, everybody. Let's move on to the next step. Why is this not moving on? Okay, right. Another little exercise. Now, I'd like everybody to join in with this, and I want you to answer these 2 questions. Why did you start hosting, and what's the real story behind your space? Now, before you all start typing, here is a few instructions. I want the real story behind these questions, not the elevator pitch, not what you'd write on LinkedIn. You need to imagine that a friend has asked you these questions and you're sitting down over coffee with them, and I just want you to write what you'd say in your own words. Absolutely no polish and no sense that you're writing this with like your professional hat on. Just write your story of why you started hosting. I'm going to give you just 2 minutes to do this, and then we'll get back together again and Paul will read out the responses. Okay? Questions before we get started, or are you all okay with that?
Genevieve, are you happy for people to jump in and answer
Yeah.
questions live?
Yeah, absolutely.
Come on, somebody. Nat, Chris, Harrow. You've all got backstories. I know them intimately, and we're all friends. Don't be shy. Harrow, good man, stepping up.
Always have to be one, isn't it?
And it's always got to be you as well. It's probably because you're Dutch. You take the finger out, you take your finger out in the dam, and everyone follows suit, don't they?
Well, we might as well. So, why did you start hosting? Well, for me, it was quite simple because I couldn't do anything else. I've been in hotels for 20 plus years, and then I had the opportunity to start a small B&B. So I tried to go out of hospitality, but I came back after 6 months because I didn't like it. So that's why I started hosting. And what's the real story behind your space? Well, it was our family home. And then I was in between jobs, couldn't find a job. And then we start thinking of maybe converting part of our home into a bed and breakfast, which we then did. And then 2 years after having another job for 2 years, we were ready to open. And here we are 10 years later this year.
Okay, brilliant. So again, that's a very human, relatable story, but also it's giving us a sense of your background in hospitality. So there's lots of things coming across there. But what I really want everybody to do is, because this is ultimately about writing, it's great to hear actually the language you used when you were just speaking, completely live, completely unrehearsed. What I want is that kind of level of energy and honesty to come across in your writing. So if everybody could just take like 2 minutes now and just write your answer, just like Harrow, you can just write down what you said there as well. So it's in writing. If everyone could just take 2 minutes to do that now, then I think it's really helpful to actually have it in written words just in front of you.
I've got 4 or 5 here. They're already in. If you're happy, we can
Wow,
kick in
you
with that.
guys
So Joey W says, didn't want to go back to teaching, exclamation mark. We were going to renovate to sell, but would get caught on tax. So thought we'd give holiday letting a go.
I think, yeah, that's a very relatable story for any teacher as well. So, yep, that's lovely. Okay, brilliant to hear that story. Okay, can I have another one?
Gur says, it has always been a passion of mine to work in hospitality. Joe, who's over in Montana, United States, says, I hiked the Appalachian Trail in 2012, 4.5 months of freedom in nature. I decided to find a lifestyle business that would give me the freedom to spend as much time in the backcountry as possible. Just for a bit of context, Joe is a mad keen mountain biker and skier. So he's put himself firmly in the backcountry.
Okay, I love, right, just before we move on to any other ones, I really love the way the enthusiasm comes across from the nature there, and then that links with the hosting. What's the name of the person who said they had a passion for hospitality?
That's good.
Gerd, I'd like to, no, you don't need to do it now. I'm not going to ask you to like come out and do this live or anything like that, but just for thinking about, I'd like to find out more. That's not enough. I'd like to find out, why have you always had a passion for hospitality? What can you link this back to? Is it something from your childhood, something for your formative years? It's hospitality in your family. It's really digging down to find out the story behind this passion. I think that's passion is something, as a word we see quite a lot floating around, and on its own doesn't really mean much unless you get the actual story behind it. But so the real stories, like leaving teaching, you couldn't deal with teaching anymore, so leaving it, loving nature, want to share that love of nature and place. These are all really concrete, real stories that lots of people will be able to relate to them. So it's fundamentally about creating something, sharing your story and the specific details of your story in a way that people can relate to it.
So these are coming in thick and fast.
Sure,
Okay,
yeah.
so Wendy, Acorn Glade, up Yorkshire, complete lifestyle change after being made redundant from the corporate world. Wanted to clear all debts and bought an ongoing site.
See, that's lovely, because that's a real transformation story, Wendy. And I think so much of what we're doing in the travel space is we're actually helping people transform themselves as well. When you travel, it's really transformative. So having this kind of your own transformation story where you were redundant and you left the corporate world and you just decided to do something completely different, that in itself as a story is a super origin story to have. Yeah, great, good.
Joe's added to his with more enthusiasm and share this experience with many others. I'm in Montana, United States. Linda has said, we are serial renovators. Bought one
Ah.
cottage on a hill and did it up. Couldn't bear to part with it, but needed to move on. Did out to people for the weekends. They loved it. Rinse and repeat.
Brilliant. Okay, wow. I'm a little bit in awe of serial renovators because I can't even renovate my own one house, let alone lots of houses. Well, you, Linda. Okay, such a wealth. This is exactly what we're all about here. All of you have an interesting and unique story. Your story, no one else has got the exact same story as you. So that, and everybody loves an origin story. So keep what you've written tonight, what you've written here, it's just a couple of lines, but keep that story because that's something you're going to be building on and sharing. And we'll come back to origin stories later on tonight, hopefully at some point. But your origin story is a really great thing to share. Don't just share it once and think, oh, I've done my origin story now. Everybody knows it, because we all know as well on social media, people will read caption once and then they'll forget about it, or they might never see it because it just gets lost. So it's telling the same story but in different ways. So don't feel you can only tell your origin story once on Instagram and then that's it. You can always tell different aspects of it, but it is something that people are always curious about. And telling your origin story is also a great way of sharing your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? And often it's a great way of across your enthusiasm for why you do what you do as well.
So Jenny, there are about 8 more in here.
Oh, really?
Added more to it. So you'd like everyone just to maybe copy and paste those somewhere into the notes or something, but just to hold on to those couple of sentences.
Yeah, do. Yeah.
Good. And I've just finished reading It Begins With Why by Simon Sinek. And it's incredibly powerful in terms of how people will not necessarily buy what you do or what you provide, but why you do it and the sentiments behind it. So yeah, another book recommendation, It Begins With Why by Simon Sinek. You can get it on an audiobook for free if you have Amazon Prime. So yeah, I'd highly recommend that. Really cool book. Kind of marketing, leadership, that type of thing melded together, but understanding your why you do something and then being able to communicate that is incredibly powerful, incredibly powerful. So Jenny, I can feel that you want to move through.
Yeah, I could go on all night with this, but we've got a lot to speak about. So yeah, we'll maybe come back to this, but for the moment, let's keep on moving. So why are stories so important, and why do they beat AI every time? I think I got the vibe from the script that you already know that AI copy is, if it's just purely AI generated copy with none of your own experiences or feelings, or you've not brought anything to the table, it's pretty dead. And I think you all get that. So I'm not going to this point, but these are 3 reasons here, 3 key reasons that stories are always going to stand out more, connect more with people than AI. And I think the emotional connection for me is a really important thing. You might think, oh, I just want people to book a room with me. I didn't really care about them connecting emotionally with me. That sounds a little bit touchy-feely, but actually that emotional connection, I think for me, it's so important because I think that conversion, getting people to book with you, almost like a byproduct of that connection. I think if people can really start to feel like they know a little bit about you, what makes you tick, then, and start to feel like they like you and trust you, then, the booking's the easy part because you've managed to do all of that through your stories and showing your personality. So yeah, it all starts with your story, right? What was I going to say about this? Yeah, so just a lot of people think that copywriting is about being really clever with words, being wordsmith, being super creative. I actually think what's even more important is just being able to share your experiences in a way that's honest and in a way that people can relate to. And this is where it all starts. Showing your personality through your captions all starts with being able to share your story. Now, we're going to do a little comparison test now. There's quite a lot of text on the next two slides. And I'm sorry about that because I hate asking people to read really text-heavy slides, but it's important for this activity. I'm going to read it out as well, just in case it's on a small screen and I don't want your eyes to get sore. So yeah, these are two different captions on the screen and then on the next screen. I'm going to read them out, and I just would like you, once you've heard and read along with me both of these captions, I'd like you to put your thoughts in the chat and tell me which one you think is more powerful and why. So the first one says, perfect venue for hen parties. Our stunning cottage is ideal for your special celebration. Spacious accommodation for groups, multiple bedrooms for all your guests, fully equipped kitchen for entertaining. We provide clean, comfortable bedding, modern amenities, flexible booking options, professional hospitality experience. Whether you're planning a weekend getaway or a special event, our luxury accommodation offers everything you need for the perfect party experience. Book now for your dream celebration. So that's the first one. The second one. You won't believe the state my hen party left the cottage in this morning. I was bracing myself as I turned the key. 12 women, a weekend of celebrations, and I'd heard the music pumping until 2 a.m. from my house next door. I was mentally calculating cleaning fees and wondering if I'd need to replace anything major. I opened the door, fresh sunflowers in the kitchen vase, every single dish washed and put away, beds stripped and sheets folded in neat piles, and I swear the wooden floors were more polished than when they arrived. The bride-to-be had left a note on the counter. Thanks for giving us the perfect weekend. We wanted to leave it as beautiful as our experience here. I may have teared up a little. Okay, a lot. This is exactly why I love hosting celebrations. You never know when a group will completely restore your faith in people. Ready to surprise me with your group? I dare you to try and top this. Okay, so when you're ready, just put your comments, any comments and thoughts you have about these two captions in the chat, please. And just feel free, Paul, to share once people have put things in the chat. I'm ready and listening.
So Malcolm has said number one, quick to read. I'm not sure what that means, but Malcolm is always happy to
Quick to
step
read.
in.
So it's like skimmable, scannable, possibly.
Yeah, possibly. Wendy said part two, storytelling is compelling reading and describing a great experience. And JJ says the second one brings you in and you'll carry on reading. The first one, I just read the top line. I wrote, each provides the same information, data, list of amenities and features, but the second one engages and brings us into the space. That was simply because it says things like 12 women, all the dishes, beds and strips, wooden floors, that sort of thing. Malcolm says number two is more personal, but a lot to read. He's managed to change the name on her iPad, well done, Linda. The second one is far more powerful and far more interesting. The first one is a typical travel guide, pap. Second one feels as though a human being has written it. Cindy, second story definitely draws the reader in and takes you on the experience with the writer. Harrow has said number one is a hard sell. The second gives you an idea of what's offered in a nicer way.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Loads. Thank you for coming in, everybody. You're really getting involved in this. It's super cool to see.
Yeah, what a great bunch. Thank you. It would be really awful if I just felt I was talking to myself. Yes, thank you, everyone. Yeah, so actually, this second story is not a complete copy because I couldn't find the original post, but this was a post on Instagram that I read like a few months ago, and I just thought it's so good. So I tried to recreate it from memory just because I thought it was so good. So yeah, I do agree with a couple of folk among you have said that it's maybe a bit long. And yeah, I do agree with that. Maybe that's partly my fault. Maybe the original one wasn't so long and I got a bit carried away when I was writing it. So it could be a little bit shorter possibly. But yeah, it's got all the elements of a good story in it. And this was definitely very much credit to the original writer. Now she does have, if I remember well, she specifically rents her place out to like parties and hen parties. So I think there's a few things that make this a really good post, as you've pointed out. It brings us in. If we look at the first line, I love the way that the first line really plays with our expectations, doesn't it? Because you won't believe the state my hen party left the cottage in this morning. I think the minute you read that first line, you've got a picture of complete carnage in your head. And then it goes on, she goes on to aggravate that a little bit in the second paragraph, 12 women, a weekend of celebrations, and you're thinking, oh, it's going to be bad. And at the same time, this is almost contradicting. So I'm not a very visual person, so I can't totally remember the photograph, but the photograph was of her place looking very nice. But it's almost like you're maybe thinking, oh, maybe that's what it looked like by the time she'd cleaned everything up. And then it's very specific, isn't it? And this is a key element of storytelling, and it's something that AI sometimes isn't very good at. All of the details, the dish, the bed stripped. Now, actually, when I was writing this up, I wasn't even thinking about like making a kind of inventory of the property and saying all the things that were in it. But actually, as Paul pointed out, it is in telling this story, is also describing the property and how many people it can comfortably sleep and all that. So it is actually giving you a good picture of the property as well as being a story. I think the main thing here, as well as the story, it's also very subtly showing the reader as well, this is a place where people have really special, lovely experiences, and they're so grateful that this is how they respond to it. So for all of those reasons, it is, I think, very powerful. And I would argue more powerful than the first one, although I do take on board that list of features is very scannable, but ultimately I think we learn a lot more about the property and the personality of the host from reading this one. Okay, before we move on, does anyone have any questions, observations about what we
Yeah,
just
coming. This is part 2. What about hooking them in and then telling them more of the story in a second follow-up? I have my thoughts on that, Jenny, but I'll let you jump in first.
So hooking them in, and so the first post you're maybe just, it's all about like the anticipation that your place is going to be trashed, and then the second post it's like revealing the truth. Is that what you mean, Malcolm? I just want to check I've understood you correctly.
Can you hop on in, Malcolm?
Yeah.
Or give me a... Oh, here we are. Malcolm's
That's
up.
it.
Nice to see you, mate.
Thank you. And you, all of you, actually. Yeah, it is a really good story. But for some people, they're not going to read it all, but it is very clever. But what about using the first 2 paragraphs to set the scene? And then if you want to learn what I found, my next post, something along those lines. That's what I was thinking.
Okay, I see what you mean, because it's making it shorter and more digestible. My only worry with that would be, and see what you think about this, Paul, is there a danger that people will then maybe not read the next post? So then they're losing that whole story? What are your thoughts, Paul?
So if we remember that if we're fortunate, about 5% of our followers will see a post when it's published for the first time. And if they engage with it, then Instagram's algorithms will push it out to more followers and non-followers and such. And we also remember that if an account has 1,000 followers, 500 people see that piece of content, let's say half of them are followers. That means that 750 followers, just on the followers, don't even know that piece of content exists. Yeah. And so whilst we live in the hope that people will binge our content like they would with Netflix looking for series 1, series 2, series 3, it's the storytelling that will pull people through that. So we could, for example, if you were to do a talking head version, then you would have a real cover and it would be part 1 and then part 2, part 3, particularly because Instagram is tinkering around where if you watch one of a series, the creator can start to link those reels through. And so if we genuinely believe that people are binging our content and they're going to our profiles and they're tapping through every single post, then I think that would work. I think an alternative way of telling this story would not necessarily be in the caption, but would be to do a carousel. So you could have the same picture of the property or a series of pictures, and you could have people swiping through. So there's only a few words on each of those images or those graphics. But bearing in mind that I think everyone now can do at least 15 images, if you could break that up into 15 bite-sized chunks, particularly because Instagram will put carousels in people's home feeds twice. They miss the first slide, it will then be put back into the feed with the second slide. So here, the first slide and the second slide all need to work as like pre-hooks. The second one needs to stand alone. So in this instance, literally word for word, the first one could be, "You won't believe the state my hen party left the cottage this morning." The second one could still say, "I was bracing myself as I turned the key," which reads almost like the beginning of a novel. And so would open a curiosity loop in order then to read through. And I think if you were to break that up into 15 bite-sized chunks, literally just get a picture and put a sentence on each of them, then you probably get there without too much trouble. So that would be a way, Malcolm, of breaking it up, but also make better sense of movement as people are going through. And I think if I read that by section graphically, I think I would be intrigued as to what happens next.
Yeah, I love that idea. I think the carousel idea would work so well. It's like reading a little mini book. And if I remember well, like the lady whose post this was, I think she had like, I don't know, did she have like a little collage of photos? So there's multiple photos that you could take to illustrate the story as well. The note on the counter, the sunflowers in the kitchen vase, the door at the beginning when she's opening the door. So it'd be a really great carousel, actually.
And just to come back to what you were saying earlier about not just putting the origin story out there and thinking it's done. Whatever these stories are, I would say I would encourage everybody to do one where it is a long caption, and then do one that's a part 1 and a part 2, and then do one that's a carousel, and then do one that's a reel or a talking head. It could be videos of your property with the words popping up, and take the same content and repurpose it. I will forever, as you all know, stop reinventing the wheel. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just paint the wheel a different color because the wagon will still roll on it. That way, you can also figure out what your audience is interested in. Yeah. They might prefer the long captions, and you could put a long caption over a reel that was quite short. So as they're reading it with this storytelling technique, it's going to take them 15, 20 seconds, 30 seconds at least to read through it. In the meantime, your reel is looping in the background. The algorithms can see people, oh, they're watching this video over and over again. Guess what happens to reach? Straight up. There's a variety of ways, but I would encourage you to try them all. If you got one and it seems to be working, then go, okay, I'll do that again. Give it a few months, just do it again, or do it in a slightly different way and iterate and tweak as you go, Mark.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant advice. Yeah, I think by the time we finish tonight, I'm hoping you'll have so many story ideas that, yeah, you won't even need to repurpose. But you should repurpose anyway, as Paul says. It's a good thing to do. Okay, are we ready to move on? Because they've still got quite a lot to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, and I should also say it's something I just spotted out. Wendy said it'd probably work as a carousel, and Harrow has said as a reel or as stories. You could turn them into stories, put them into a highlight. I know people get uncomfortable about origin stories, but they are incredibly powerful. So if you had a highlight that was FAQs, one about reviews, and one was the origin story, then people will actively go there. And then you put a link sticker on it and shoot them off to your website. But yeah, brilliant ideas. Thank you, everybody.
Really good.
Awesome effort.
Very good. Okay, right. Okay, another interactive task for you guys to do now. Now, I'm not going to ask you to come up with like an Insta-ready caption, but at the moment we're just looking for ideas and generating ideas. So what I want you to do is, these are all like possible story starters. What I want you to do is just choose one, just as the kind of a basic idea, and think about what you might write about if you were choosing this story starter. What you might write about related to you and your place. And yeah, again, we're just generating ideas. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be a perfect piece of writing, but just choose one and yeah, in a couple of sentences, say what you would write about. Yeah, just take 2 minutes and then Paul will read what you've come up with.
While everyone's reading through it, I'm going to jump up and say my favourite one is the final one. I've lived here for X years, but yesterday I noticed I really like the contrast and I like the intrigue, and I think I could use it to create a sense of curiosity to make people read on, particularly because the beginning of our captions, Instagram at most will only show about 100, it's actually dropped now, it's about 115 characters. I go, what, you've lived there forever and you found something new. Oh, that's like the inside edge. That's, dare I say, you might be able to push it towards live like a local when you're here, hidden gems, all of that type of thing. And I've always enjoyed, when I had the guest house running, I used to enjoy doing that type of content. And I wish I'd seen this before, a couple of years ago, because I've lived in this building for 40 years. So it just lends itself to a little bit of a backstory. And then...
Can you think of any specific examples, Paul, of any time you've just like lived somewhere for a long time and then noticed something?
Yeah, but not necessarily in this industry. While everyone's coming, it's a slightly embarrassing story. So I lived in Brazil for 3 or 4 years, and I was known as super gringo because I always used to do stupid things and not really understand. And all the locals would look at me like I was a lunatic. But it took me nearly 2 years. So I'd be walking down the street and I'd be thinking, why is everyone all on that side of the road? And it took me 2 years to figure out that, of course, they were walking in the shade. So, yeah, you could probably weave that around a little bit, but not specific to Oxford. I'm so long in the tooth here now that none of it surprises me really. But yeah, so we've got a few coming in. Nat JJ with the celebrity dog. Autumn has arrived when we are brushing the leaves off the driveway every day. Very good. Cindy, what seemed like a disaster became. Wendy's gone for the thing nobody warns you about when guests choose to return time and time again and they become like family. I then know to put Scrabble in or red wine or getting to know what makes a difference. Love that.
Oh,
That's super cool.
lovely. That is
Chris,
really-
also Scotland. Autumn has arrived when you spend more time mowing the driveway than the lawn. That's perfect, Chris. Linda, the day we first came to view Barton Court was the day I realised this place was special. Nothing prepared me for the stunning beauty of the setting, so it's jumping out, or the grace of the buildings. And they are magnificent buildings. Cindy Raphael says, I'm thinking already of a story starting with what began as a disaster became a special friendship. We rescued a guest family with 4 children at 1 a.m. when they were locked out of the Airbnb they had booked and couldn't reach the host.
Oh my goodness, that happened to us this summer. That is,
Didn't it?
yeah. Oh my goodness, that is such an amazing story to write about. Yeah, but these are all absolutely brilliant ideas. I'd like to read your finished story. Well, I'd like to read all of these finished stories, but I'm curious what happened in the...
There's two more here, so to
Oh,
cut
yeah.
across. The day I realised this space was special when about 40% of guests are returning guests and they're no longer guests but friends. It's from Harrow and Chester. Malcolm, I thought I knew this area well until I discovered XYZ pub and restaurant on the shores of the river Orwell, where you can walk along the shoreline and then enjoy a fabulous lunch.
So so that last one's really leading us into a very kind of specific, I hate the phrase hidden gem, but yeah, undiscovered place that nobody else knows about. So these kind of stories are always great. So many good ideas there. I'd love...
There's a funny one, sorry. I keep coming in, they keep popping up. So do tell me just to button it, because I don't want to ruin
love
your
to
flow.
hear.
And I don't like talking over people, so forgive me. I'm just very excited about all this. Yeah, Zoe says, the thing nobody tells you about hosting is you will never have a whole toilet roll at home again, which I love. And it's so true as well. Hit the nail on the head there.
It's great. Yeah, that's very funny as well. And so there's so much that you could build on with these stories. I'd love to hear more about all of these. What I will say is once you start to do more in the way of writing stories, I think one of my key pieces of advice would be keep it as specific as possible. Now, there were lots of already nice little specific details coming in there. So, sorry, I've forgotten the name of the person who mentioned providing the Scrabble. Was that?
That was Wendy.
Wendy, okay. So, yeah, that's a lovely specific detail. You could have said board games, but you narrowed it down to Scrabble. Always, if you've written something and you look at it, always think, how could I narrow this down and make it even more specific? Because the more specific you are, the more your personality comes across, the more vivid your stories are, and the more people can picture the stories and possibly themselves in your stories. So a good activity after this session, because we don't really have time for it this evening, but I think it would be great in all of these cases for you to just pursue one of the ideas, whatever idea you chose there, and see if you can write a little bit more about it to make it an Instagram caption, and see if you can, a little bit like, it doesn't need to be exactly the same as the hen party story we looked at, but with the kind of hook that gets people reading and excited to read more, and then specific details so that you're managing to share about your place and about what you offer, but you're also keeping people engaged and getting them reading so they can see what happens next. I do have a resource to help you with this as well, which I'll be sharing at the end of the session. But brilliant work, everybody. Obviously, you're all natural storytellers. I think we're all natural storytellers anyway. That's just what humans do. So it's just getting used to it and just getting used to writing the stories in your own voice. You can't just think, oh, I've got one story and that's it. If you're serious about doing this writing with personality malarkey, you need to build your own story bank. So It's a horrible thing if you sit down to produce some content and you just have nothing, and it's like a blank mind, a blank slate. And that's when I think many people just go to AI, and that's when you get the problems with the generic beige content, because you're just saying, write me a post about my cottage, and it's rubbish. It's so much better. AI can be quite useful. I'm not going to say don't use AI at all, but I think if you just go to it with nothing, you'll get something rubbish. If you have a bank of your own stories that are your stories, nobody else's stories, just your stories, then you can really start to produce some wonderful things. So I've got here a kind of list of the types of stories that you could include in your story bank. And this is almost just like a list. You can keep it on a spreadsheet, on a document, on the notes app, on your phone, wherever you want to keep it. But for every type of story, you should just have a little list of 2 or 3 different stories you could tell. So origin stories, how you started. Now, you shared your origin story tonight. You could probably, there's a few different ways that you could tell this story. Guest stories. So you're all going to have lots of guest stories. They can be anonymized, so you don't always need to go and ask for permission, because sometimes that takes time and you just want to get a story out there. Funny things that guests have said, things that guests have left behind, ways that guests have surprised you. Behind the scenes moment, that hen party story was a super example of a behind the scenes moment, but it could also be something that happened when you were getting a room ready. Local discovery stories. Someone suggested a lovely local discovery story in the last activity about finding that lovely place along the shoreline. Seasonal weather stories, sweeping up the autumn leaves. And one of my favourite stories to tell, and something I do a lot of, is things that went wrong, but here's what I learned. And I think a lot of the time we shy away from telling these sort of stories, that maybe we're worried we'll look bad, or we won't look professional if we talk about mistakes that we've made. I send out emails on a twice weekly basis, and actually the most response I get to my stories are when I'm sharing things that have happened to me that really aren't that great. And that's when I get a lot of engagement. And I think the reason is people appreciate the fact that someone is being human and being vulnerable and being real. And it's almost like an antidote to all that very polished AI perfection that is going on. Obviously, you have to be strategic to some extent with this. You can't share things about that might compromise how you come across as a host. But so you have to be careful. As long as you can share things that maybe mistakes that you've made, as long as they don't make it look as if you'd deliver a less than experience, if that makes sense. But yeah, people do like to hear about little everyday fails and stuff like that. So I think this would be a really good starting point, is just starting to collect stories. And as hosts, I know that you are going to have so many stories. The guest stories is a great starting point because people are fascinating, and I'm sure you get to meet all sorts of people in your hosting. Now, this is us coming to the first part of this evening. Let me just, oh my gosh, right, okay, we're a little bit short on time, but it's okay. Is everyone okay? Is everyone still with me? Is it okay if I go on to the next bit, or does anyone have any burning questions they'd like to ask first?
So Wendy said that what you were just speaking about is very much like our content pillars. So I always recommend we talk about service and space, nourishment, local activities, reviews, and booking direct. She's also coming and says, sometimes we're like faulty towers. It's a hamster, Mr. Faulty, not a rat. The Brits will get that. And if you haven't seen it in the United States, do look up Faulty Towers, especially if you're a fan of Python and Cleese. We do often overrun, and everybody knows that if they've got other places to be, the replays will be posted all around the houses and sent over and these types of things. So please, if you're happy to spare the time, Jenny, then we would be delighted to hear what you
Okay,
can give us.
well, I'll just keep on going then. That's great. Wendy, are you the host who recently had a story about a bunny going missing? A toy bunny, not a real bunny.
Yes.
Love that story. So that's a great example of storytelling on Instagram, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's true.
Oh, I know. It was clearly cute. Stories can be true. Should be true, I think. Wendy had a lovely story. Wendy, maybe you should tell the story. It's your story.
Oh, it was very sweet. I was clearing the bed after some guests had left, and I found a very small soft toy. It was a bunny, and get hold of the people before they set off for miles to get home. And then I left a message and they didn't answer. So I decided to put it out on Instagram carefully, and they did eventually get back to me. But it turned out that rabbit was really special to them. I won't go into the details, but anyway, so I had to get it back to them and quickly. So yeah, and it involved me driving to the post office, which was then closed, and I had to go to another post office and all this. And I did 3 reels and linked them. And yeah, it really hit. I got lots of views and comments. So yeah.
Yeah, I think we were all really invested in this little bunny being reunited with its owner. So yeah, that was a great example of storytelling. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll move on then to, I think this is like one of my favorite things. I love speaking about stories, but this next bit is something I really enjoy and I think is really important for what we're doing tonight. Voice discovery methods. Now, yeah, I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about when I talk about voice. When someone's speaking, you'll make judgments about their accent, the pitch of their voice, the timbre, whether you'll be thinking, do I like this voice? Is this person got an annoying voice? How does this voice make me feel? And your written voice is no less unique than your spoken voice. And I'm not sure if people always realize this. And one of the big problems I feel with AI, it really flattens out voice. And it makes everybody sound the same, and it makes everybody's content now is just using the same sentence structure and the same words and the same patterns. People say, oh, it's great, you can train AI to sound like you. Well, I've tried to train AI to sound like me because I'm lazy. I'd like it if I could just get a bot to do my work for me, but you can't. It doesn't work. It can't sound like you ever. It just sounds like AI pretending to be you. So, and I'm still not saying don't use AI, but I'm saying use it with caution. Develop a real awareness of what your voice is and what your written voice sounds like. Because if you have that awareness, you'll then be able to work with AI and you'll be able to look at the content it produces, if you are using it to help you, and say, no, this is not my voice, and then change it accordingly. It does sound like you. So the first thing I want to speak about, which is really important, is your dialect. So your idiot is an idiolect from a dialect. So a dialect is how a group of people living in a particular region or place speak. But your idiolect is how the words and the phrases and the vocabulary and the grammar you use that is specific to you as an individual. So just to give a little example of me, but you will all have your own idiom as well. So I grew up on mainland Scotland, so I use quite a lot of Scottish words. But then for 20 years now, I've lived in the Shetland Islands, which has its own dialect. So a few Shetland words have crept in. I use a lot of the words and phrases that my mum and dad used. When I was growing up, you go through a phase where you do not want to sound like your mum and dad. But then when you get older, you change and you're actually using some of your mums and dads and older relatives' language. Actually, it feels like quite a nice thing to do because it keeps them alive. It keeps your memory of them alive. At the same time, I've got 2 young grown-up children who are Gen Z, and they're starting to influence my language as well. And I've got a lot of Gen Z words that I use. And at first I used jokingly with my children, so I use some of their language as a joke, but it's almost starting to kind of stick and become my language. Because that's just me. But everybody has an incredibly rich, and it's all the places you've ever been. It's all your friendships and words you've picked up from your friends and your relatives and influences and interests. And it's fantastic. And it's so, so interesting. And one of the most important things I'd like to say this evening is aware of your idiolect and the words that you use. Because if you have this awareness, it's going to put your writing head and shoulders above so much of the other things that you see online. I've just used some examples here of bits of my, some of these are just the Scottish words and phrases, but some of them are just phrases that I use and I'm not even very sure where they come from. I talk about, if I say, oh, am I in your soup? Meaning, am I in your way? And then somebody once looked at me strangely and they said, why do you say that? There's no such phrase. And I looked it up and I don't know where I got this from, but it's just a phrase that I use. I say even though it's grammatically incorrect, but that's just what my mum always said, and it's been passed down to me. So yeah, excuse me, it will be the same for you. And it's absolutely fine, I think, to use the odd bit of idiolect, like even if it's something that's maybe not everybody is going to understand in your writing, as long as it's clear what it means by the context, because people do actually really enjoy asking questions and finding out what words mean that they're not sure about. Just the other day, I emailed a potential client and asked her if she was swithering. There's that top word there, swither. I asked her if she was swithering about joining the programme or not. And she replied to me and said, no, I've decided I want to join your programme. But what does swithering mean? And then we had a little conversation about it. So it can be a nice way of just connecting with people as well. Just discussions about language. People are always interested in the words that other people use. To find out more about your own idiolect, here's an activity. We're not going to do it now, but this is something that you can do later on. And you do it soon though, because seriously, this is a game changer. Go through your messages on your phone, on your Facebook, whatever is the way you most frequently send messages, and look at your messages in particular to friends and family, because that's where you're most relaxed and that's where our idiolect is going to come out. A screenshot of them and then do what's called a little text message audit. What words and phrases do you use repeatedly? How do you naturally start your messages? If you're telling a story, how do you tell stories? Here's an example. This is just a screenshot of a message I recently sent to a friend, and it probably doesn't make much sense to anyone, but I'd had this really awful dream that I was friends in the dream with this copywriter whose work I really admire. We're not friends in real life because she's like a millionaire copywriter, mega famous in New York, and I'm just me. But in the dream, we were friends, and she found out that I had a notebook that I'd actually been plagiarising her work, and it was really awkward in the dream. Nobody really would have understood this dream, so this is just a message I sent to a friend. And so I had a look at that, and I was like, okay, so this tells me that I just went straight into the story. There were no niceties, there was no preamble. Even just some of the words I used. It was so awkward because in the dream we were good friends. Some people would say pals, some people would say chums, some people would say buddies, some people would say mates. Just having a look and seeing, really thinking about every word you've chosen, the length of your sentences, and starting to write down some observations about your voice. But it's very important that you choose messages you've sent to friends, and they should be casual messages that you haven't really thought about, because copywriting is much more akin to speech, to spoken writing, than it is to formal writing. Because if you really want people to get a sense of who you are and what you're like, it's got to be this less formal, chatty, like you're talking to a friend writing, because that's where our personalities really come across. Okay. I'm going to give my voice a little rest, and I'm going to give you guys a task. And this task is just a little voice exercise, extracting your voice DNA. So again, the important thing to remember here is you're talking to a friend, you're not talking to a customer, you're not talking to a colleague or a peer or a fellow host, you're just chatting to a friend. But the last time you enthusiastically recommended your area to a friend, and I want you to think about the words you used and just write it down. Just take a minute to do that. Don't overthink it. Just use the first words that come into your head. Paul, whenever things start to come through, just let me know.
While people are thinking, Chris up in Scotland says, in our local crack, "Are you right?" means no chance.
I right. Oh yes.
Are you right? Of course, I had to respond, "See you, Jim."
See you. I have never met
See you.
anybody who says "see you, Jimmy."
Yeah, I think we can thank Ross Abbott for that one. Garrett said, "I'm Welsh and proud of the Welsh words." So I've been to stay with Garrett, and he and his wife and his family speak Welsh, and he does pop them into his posts, some bilingual and some with Welsh words that he randomly just chucks in. And I've always enjoyed reading that, because the first thing I have to do copy and paste it and translate it, and it just focuses my attention on it.
Brilliant. Great.
I just wondered why people are writing. Oh, there's one popped in now. Wendy asked, how did spill the beans turn into spill the tea? Clearly down with the kids on that one. I read that a lot. I don't know. I think it's come from the United States.
I don't know where it's come from either, but yeah, I know my children both talk about spilling the tea.
Yeah. Wendy said, I found a fab place to eat. OMG, it's out of this world. The flavors, the decor, the service. When are we going?
Brilliant. Okay, so that just sounds so immediate and chatty. Fab place out of this world, the OMG. That just sounds, it just sounds like, well, I don't know you, Wendy, so I don't know if it sounds like you, but it sounds like a real.
It sounds like Wendy. Yeah, that's what that might. Everyone, I can see everyone's heads down, and there's all this going on. Must be typing. It's going to be first the worst, second the best. While we're doing that, I just wanted to back a little bit to the thing that you were talking about with AI. I'm writing another blog and newsletter thing, and I found this interesting idea that AI will amplify what you say. And it will focus on key things that it thinks will then perform. And the author I was reading said, well, if you imagine it like a megaphone, you've got a megaphone. You can either use the AI as a tool, the megaphone, and use it to really highlight and key into particular things that you might be feeling. Because if you feed it correctly and you give it guardrails to work within, then it can start to draw parallels, particularly. So we could be connecting things like a little workspace and a glass of wine with a perfect potential guest who wants seclusion and quietness, but is also worried that she might miss an important email from her boss while she's away. And it can start to pull those. But this author was saying, what we're doing when we hand it off to AI is we're giving AI the megaphone. It's just going to amplify what Gur has already said. It's just beige. And I think there's a race to the bottom with that. So I think maintaining the agency, if we are going to use AI, particularly rewriting what it spits out, is absolutely key. And that's where I think you're absolutely right on the money with elect, that sort of thing. Nat and JJ have written, listening and having our tea. Is that just telling us what you're up to? Ah, disappeared. He's obviously gone looking for something. I could see loads of people typing, but there's not a lot popped up in here yet.
Oh, now don't be overthinking it.
Well, here we go. Malcolm, people do not realise just how much there is to see and do in Suffolk. There are some hidden gems.
Okay, people do not realise how much there is to see and do. There are some hidden gems. Yeah, if that's it. It's tricky for me actually, because I don't actually know how you guys actually speak. But if that is what you would say to a friend, then go with it. The only thing I question there possibly is, I suppose people do say hidden gems, don't they? I think because hidden gems has become so overused in the travel sphere, it's almost like, yeah, should we be looking at different ways to say hidden gems?
Like not so secret secrets.
Yeah, it's tricky. Or maybe just talk more about these gems without necessarily calling them hidden gems, like go straight on to speaking about the place.
Yeah, I do know Malcolm, and it is the type of phrase he would use without even a second thought. I'm fairly right with that, Malcolm. You would just say that, wouldn't you? Linda has said, today was fun, but you can keep your London air. I got out of the car and inhaled the scent of the countryside. I don't think I could give that up now. No amount of London buzz.
Oh, that sounds very conversational. That does sound like you're just chatting with a friend. Like I'm eavesdropping on you chatting with a friend.
Cindy said, there are endless activities for children. Our grands never want to leave.
Our who's never want to leave?
Our grands. Now, I've had quite a lot of one-on-one DMs with Cindy, and she refers to her grandchildren as the grands.
Okay, brilliant. So there I was thinking, thought that maybe was it. So that's a good example of how people could use the context, the rest of the caption, to guess at what you were meaning. And again, that's a great example of idiolect. So, yep, thank you for that, Cindy.
I think we're there.
Cool. Okay. Brilliant. Well, some really good examples there. And all of these examples just sounded completely different. And that is the point. You should be able to identify your own work. You should be able to imagine there was 25 captions in front of you. You should be able to confident, even if you wrote them 2 months ago, you should be able to look and say, that's my one, and I recognize my voice. These are the sort of words I would use. Because if you can't quite remember what you wrote about, and then it's just all of there's nothing that stands out as being your particular voice, something wrong. So you need to have this voice DNA running through everything that you write. But obviously, what we've just heard, there's some very strong voice DNA going on. So that needs to be your starting point. Okay, we're going to go on now to style guide, like brand style guides. And I'm going to suggest that something you should all do going forward is create a style guide for yourself. Now, you might think, oh, but I'm just me, I'm just a very small business. Aren't style guides for big businesses? Well, I don't think they are necessarily. I think everyone can benefit from having a style guide because I think it keeps you consistent. It keeps your writing style consistent, and it's just really useful for you to refer back to sometimes. And these are some of the questions that you should be thinking about, asking yourself, and then referring to every time you sit down and write a caption. So first of all, what's your natural storytelling rhythm? How do you naturally tell stories? Are you very direct? Do you get straight to the point? Do you like to build up the suspense a little bit? Are you very descriptive? How do you tell stories? What's your humor style? So is your humor dry? Do you like a good pun? Are you absurdist? We all have our own specific sense of humor, so that there's absolutely nothing wrong with that coming across in your captions. In fact, quite the opposite. I'd say show your sense of humor, but again, keep it consistent. How do you show excitement in words? I think you all did a really good job of that in the last activity. Words that are uniquely yours. Okay, so we've got grands as a good example from Cindy, but you'll all have words that are unique to yours. There's no harm in starting to compile a little list of them to develop an awareness of the words that are yours. So transition phrases, that's quite a good one to be aware of. So when you've written about something and then you want to go on to introduce a new idea, how do you do it? Do you say anyway, or moving on, or enough of that, or how do you do it? And start to build an awareness of that as well. And the last one is just simply your tone of voice. So how would you best describe who you come across to your reader? Hopefully you sound friendly. Or do you sound very enthusiastic? Do you sound very warm? Do you sound very welcoming? Do you sound serene, peaceful? All of these could be potentially very positive tones for the hospitality industry. So I think, it's if you really identify with one tone of voice, I think it'd be quite good to double down on it, because then again, it's just building that brand consistency. So we've spoken about a lot tonight, and these are some different things that we've covered. So just a quick kind of attempt to bring it all together. We've spoken about storytelling. I think that's really where it all begins, with a story. And I think you've all got lots of stories to tell. Your idiolect, we've spoken about that. Sense of humour, we touched on that there, but I do think that is important. Laughter's a great connector after all. Register, so that's just like your level of formality. I'd suggest that most of you you'd be wanting to be informal, chatty, like you're talking to a friend wherever possible. Tone of voice as well. How are you wanting to come across to your potential guests? And making sure that tone is always there. And this is just like a little checklist of questions you can ask yourself just to make sure you're maintaining this personality in your writing. Just simple questions. Would I say this to my friend? I use at least one of my words or phrases. Is there even a micro story here? So stories don't always need to be big epics. Even a little sentence or a little detail can inject some of that storytelling magic. So always see if there's any way you can insert some kind of story in there. And it's always a really good idea. I can't say this enough, to read what you've written aloud, because stuff that might look okay on a screen, when you read it aloud in your voice, that's when you pick up on anything that sounds awkward or not quite you. So I think that's a really good to get involved with. And finally, I think this is the last slide. You'll be pleased to know I have prepared kind of slightly extended version of what we've spoken about tonight as a little resource. The QR code is there. If you would like it, please feel free to take a picture of the QR code. Just in the interest of transparency, If you download it, you will also be signing up to get emails from me. I send emails twice a week. They're about copywriting, specifically for travel and tourism professionals. It's meta because I usually tell a story in my email, but it links with some advice and tips about copywriting always. But yeah, just to let you know that you will be letting yourself in for that, but you can always unsubscribe if it's not for you further down the line. And that is all I have to say. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and if anyone's got any questions, then it's your chance. How do I stop sharing my screen?
I think you have.
Good.
I think you have.
How do I get back to see you guys?
Ooh, some in the top right, view, perhaps, gallery, something like that along those lines.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, we'll keep talking while I...
Yeah, good. While you're doing that, I put that link in the chat. Some of you might have noticed I've been experimenting with my copy, my newsletters, and my captions when I've been active on Instagram. I've been a bit inconsistent with that recently, but I subscribe to Genevieve's emails, and they are really good, and they are very good.
Thank you.
I use them I love the content, but I also try and steal like an artist in terms of the structure and the format and how the story will lead into something else. Lots of love is being shown in the comments. Thank you. It's really interesting. Thank you. It's been very informative. Thank you so much for your time. Before we do anything else, I'd love for everybody, especially if you haven't typed anything in the chat at all, to drop one takeaway that you got in the chat today. And the one that I took away to get the ball rolling was I've spent the last few years being fairly restrained with my personality, particularly in my written content. As you all know, I'm in the Air Force, so I am inclined occasionally to drop the odd slightly unsavory language and these things. And you might have seen I'm starting to relax a bit into that. And I forget exactly the words that you used, but I think we all, feel free to disagree with me if I'm wrong, but we all feel a sense of needing to be formal, because when we present ourselves to our guests, particularly if we're front of the house and we're welcoming people and such, there's always a barrier between what we keep private and what we project. And very often that can be fairly formal. So for example, I went to boarding school and I grew up in a military family. I would always call people sir or ma'am, and until they invited me, or I called them Mr. until they said, no, call me Steve or call me Julie or whatever that is. And I think being able to relax into the informality, particularly on a platform like Instagram, and feeling comfortable doing that, it was a really powerful thing for me personally. So what everyone else has got: Wendy, Idiolette, Linda, letting the voice go free. Chris has just put a party emoji in. Such a positive smiley man. Zoe, be me. Nat again, it's okay to be us. Cindy, I have written with restraint, attempting to be more like the trending popular content. I've posted with very little personality. This sounds very freeing and fun. I love that. That's really cool, particularly for you, Cindy. I know that you've been trying to find your voice, so it's very cool to see that you've got that. Harrow, thank you. Be yourself, which I need to be on my socials. I know Harrow is going to be pushing reels and stories. He likes to appear in his reels, so that's a perfectly wonderful opportunity. Harrow's personality out there. Harrow, you're an awesome mate. So yeah, just do that. And if people don't like you, sod them. You wouldn't want them staying in your B&B anyway. If they didn't like you, you're not going to like them. Exactly. Yeah. If you don't like it, move on. Don't forget, if you lose followers, you're not losing followers really. You're finessing your audience. If they don't like you, then you don't want to be looking. We've all had guests like that. Malcolm, it's okay to be yourself and experiment with communicating in different ways. That's super. Genevieve, thank you so much for sharing your insights today. You've given us a clearer idea of I'm all about structure, but how we might structure ourselves and actually voice or identify it and be able to look at it and take it apart and sound like ourselves. And importantly, not like everybody else. Do grab that Captions with Character kit, created it just for us. You can grab it via the link that I put in the comments here in the chat. It will be in the round robin email, and it will go, of course, with the AI recording and then the edited version as well. So plenty of opportunities to do that. It's designed to help you apply the strategies that you've learned today right away. It's really important that we don't just take it as inspiration, but actually move forwards and take action on it, because this is something that you will actually use. If you want to go deeper, I cannot recommend Genevieve's book, Boldly Go, highly enough. I've read it cover to cover 3 times, and it's something I expect to go back to. Every time I look at it, I get something new. So whether you're new to copywriting or you've been at it for a while, it is a brilliant roadmap for finding your tone of voice and speaking directly to your dream guest. And that is the key to cut through the soup, particularly AI generated soup. So as I said, the links and the replay will be in the round robin email. I'm going to be editing later. I am going to be in uniform for 24 hours, so there will be a small delay on the edited version. So thank you for your patience with that. The AI one will go into the Facebook group and the round robin email first thing in the morning. Does anyone have any final questions? No? Good. Right, well, I'm going to do my usual trick. I'm going to take all your lovely smiley faces as a picture and get that up on the Instagram as a story. So if you could get a big wave for me. Yeah, it's fantastic. Thank you. Finally, quick reminder. Our next office hours session will be on the 16th of October. Hold the front page. Ger has finally to step up and have his account reviewed, which is super cool because I've been nagging him for a year, something along those lines. So I'm very excited about that. And then we'll dive into latest updates, the ones that matter to you guys. So mark that down and I will confirm the Zoom. It'll be in the round robin and then all the Facebook stuff and all that type of stuff. Loads of love in the comments. Yeah, Ger says Harrow. Wendy's like, woohoo, Ger, that's so cool. Yeah, everyone's just very grateful to you, Genevieve. Thank you so much for all the prep you did for the kit and for spending, well, what time is it now? Good grief, it's nearly 9 p.m. here in the UK, so I will love you and leave you.
It's been a pleasure, and thanks to everybody. You've just been so engaged and fun. Really enjoyed myself.
Excellent. So, Jenny, do you want to stay on for a little bit while everyone ducks out? That's the end of the show, folks, and I will see you in the Facebook group and next month and all that type of good stuff. Lovely. Take care of yourself.